Several years ago, I used to live with my ex-boyfriend. We had just moved into a 2-bedroom house and were slowly turning it into a home. The back bedroom became our office, but since the house only had one bathroom, you had to go through that bedroom to get to it. We didn't like the idea of friends crashing on our sofa and needing to walk through our bedroom to get to the bathroom at night. It felt too personal. So, we made sure to keep it separate. We'd been living there for about a month when the incident happened. My ex was out with his work friends, leaving me home alone for the evening. The house was quiet, and I was settling in for a typical night by myself. I spent the early evening watching TV and eating takeout, but the silence was broken by occasional odd sounds, creaks and bumps. Every time I tried to focus on them, they'd stop, leaving me unsure if they were real or just my imagination. As the night grew later, I decided to go upstairs to use the computer before heading to bed. At the time, our phone line still wasn't set up, and I had only a pay-as-you-go phone that had run out of credit, so I couldn't contact anyone or get help. I sat in the back bedroom, lit only by a small table lamp, the room bathed in a faint, dim glow. I was typing on my laptop when I suddenly heard those strange noises again. At first, it was a faint rattling sound so soft I could barely tell if it was real. I turned off the music to listen more carefully, trying to figure out what it was. I went into our bedroom and looked out the front door, but there was no one outside. I then peered out the back bedroom window, but the view was too dark to see anything clearly. Our yard was small with a high brick wall and a solid wooden gate, and there was no light back there. What little I could see told me there was nothing outside. I sat back down and turned the music on again, trying to focus on my work. About 10 minutes later, I heard a creepy screeching sound, like metal rubbing against metal. It was faint, but it sounded like someone was trying very hard to be quiet. A chill ran down my spine, and I felt uneasy. I went into the bedroom, grabbed a heavy iron rod we had found in the back of the closet, and headed back to the office bedroom, making sure to keep everything as quiet as possible. I didn't turn on any lights, unsure of what was happening. I locked the door behind me and put a chair under the handle to secure it. For about 20 minutes, nothing else happened. I began to feel a little silly, maybe it was just the anxiety of being alone for the first time in the house, but I didn't turn the music back on this time. A strange sense of dread settled over me. Then, I heard it again. Whispers, 2 male voices, talking softly. The voices didn't sound like they were coming from inside the house, and the window was slightly open. The whispers grew clearer and louder. It was as though they were coming from right outside the gate, just beyond the yard. I crept into the bathroom, carefully climbing onto the ledge and opening the bathroom window to get a better look into the alley behind the house. My heart was pounding in my chest. I couldn't see anything, but the whispering grew louder. I caught fragments of the conversation. "They've just moved in," one voice said, "and they've got a lot of valuable stuff. Guitars, computers, maybe we should wait for her to fall asleep, then break in." Fear gripped me as I realized they knew I was alone. I stayed in position, frozen, listening to the whispering, until suddenly there was a loud thud that echoed through the yard. The men had stopped being careful and were now banging on the gate, trying to break it down. Each hit made the gate shudder and shake violently. My small frame couldn't move. I was paralyzed with terror as I watched the gate struggle against the pressure. I grabbed the iron rod tightly, searching for a place to hide. Then, a bright light blinded me, and I instinctively ducked down. I thought they were shining a flashlight at the back of the house, but then I heard barking and shouting. When I looked out again, I saw that the house across the alley had turned on a floodlight. I heard the men cursing and running down the alley as fast as they could. My heart was still racing, and I stayed locked in the back bedroom, trembling, until my ex-boyfriend finally stumbled in around 4 a.m. I hadn't slept at all that night. The next morning, I went into the yard to find that the gate was hanging by just one hinge, practically broken. When I looked closely, I saw that the keyhole was scratched up as if someone had tried to force it open. If the house across the alley hadn't turned on their light, I shudder to think what might have happened. This happened a few years ago when my family and I would spend our winter holidays every year at a small cabin in Yungaburra, Australia. We used to go there because we needed a break from the scorching heat of our hometown, KS. KS is a tropical city where it feels like summer year-round, so a cool escape was always a good idea. Yungaburra is a quaint little town situated on a mountain, surrounded by lush greenery and beautiful landscapes. It's one of those small towns where if you blink, you might miss it. However, it's incredibly friendly and charming. Yungaburra is an old town, dating back over 150 years. As old as the town is, there are also a lot of local stories that have changed and evolved over time. One of these stories became a terrifying reality for us. We had rented a cabin that was located at the edge of the forest, right next to an old farmhouse with lots of land surrounding it. To reach the cabin, we had to hike a steep incline, and the road led all the way up to the farmhouse. On one side of the road, there was a medium-sized pond with clear water. Sometimes you could spot ducks there or hear the croaking of frogs. The dirt road connected to the main street of Yungaburra, which had a few small shops, a cafe, and a local pub. One evening, I went to meet a good friend of mine at the pub. We were having a great time, laughing, chatting, and catching up. I decided not to drink too much because I had to drive back early the next day. Around 11:30 p.m., I figured it was time to head back to the cabin and get some sleep. The cabin was only a 15-minute drive away. After saying goodbye at the pub, I started driving back. As I was driving, I realized that not driving was a bad decision. The temperature was around 5 degrees Celsius, and I was only wearing a thin jumper. The cold started to settle in, and I began to regret my decision. When I reached the entrance to the driveway, I suddenly felt uneasy. The road was dark, with no streetlights, making it impossible to see anything. I turned on the flashlight on my phone, but then I noticed something strange. Suddenly, a soft fog appeared, and it thickened rapidly, filling the air. The wind also became damp, and I could barely see the driveway. As the fog grew thicker and my phone's flashlight seemed to be swallowed by it, I thought it would be best to stop. I had heard about a steep ditch and a pond nearby. I stopped my car, feeling that I had made a mistake by continuing down this road. Then, I noticed a faint amber light moving slowly toward me. It was a lantern, floating through the fog, as if guiding me. Then, I heard a soft voice saying, "Come, child, it's okay. Follow the light." I thought it was my mom's voice, and for a moment, I felt reassured. I decided to follow the light. It led me through the thickening fog, cutting through it with its warm glow. I kept walking, and after about 3 minutes, I saw the wooden steps of an old house, and the sound of a door creaking open. My heart felt lighter, but then, unexpectedly, the light vanished. I looked around, trying to see the light again, but there was no response. When I looked up, I realized I was standing in front of an old farmhouse. The door creaked in the wind, and strange sounds came from inside. Then, I heard a voice from inside the farmhouse, "My son, you've returned home." This voice was different, odd and unsettling. I froze for a moment, and then I realized I shouldn't be standing there. I turned and ran, but then I heard the voice again, "My son, where are you going?" I ran faster, but suddenly, something hard hit me, and I fell. When I opened my eyes, I realized I had collided with something solid, a gravestone. In panic, I screamed and ran as fast as I could. But then, the amber lights appeared again, coming from the fog, surrounding me. My heart raced as I ran, but I suddenly tripped and fell unconscious. When I regained consciousness, my father was shaking me awake. He told me he had heard something and had come outside. As he stepped out, he saw the same amber light, this time glowing faintly from the fog. My night had ended right there. The next day, we decided never to stay there again. The following day, I called my friend and told him what had happened. He told me that according to an old local legend, the farmhouse had been built in the 19th century. There had been a woman named Anne who lived there with her son. One night, her son went missing in the fog, and the next morning, his body was found at the bottom of the pond. It is said that Anne still roams the area, searching for her lost son. "5 years ago, my wife and I moved into a new house on a quiet housing estate in the west of Ireland. The house was modern and had a positive vibe. Overall, we liked its design, the spacious rooms, and the natural light streaming through the windows. But soon after moving in, something strange began to happen. It was hard to explain at first, but I started feeling uneasy, like something was off, just beneath the surface. It wasn't just a fleeting feeling, it lingered. And then there was the attic. The attic was unlike any typical attic. It had been fully converted into a large bedroom with an attached bathroom, and it even had a proper staircase leading up to it, not a ladder like most attics. The space was bright, airy, and seemed normal, but there was something about the closet area that felt wrong. It was situated in the middle of the attic, right on the landing, and surrounded by other rooms like the bathroom, my office, and a crawl space. The closet had no windows, and its door was heavy, solid, almost like it was guarding something. While I worked in my office, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was behind me. It was subtle at first, just a gentle touch on my hair, like someone was flicking a single strand. At first, I dismissed it, thinking I was imagining things. But after a few months, I moved my desk, hoping it would stop. But now, it happened on my left side, in a straight line from where the closet stood behind me. No matter how I tried to ignore it, it persisted. There were no windows on that side of the room, no heaters, and nothing that could explain it. It was like a constant reminder that something unseen was there, lingering in the shadows. Then, the whispers began. Soft, indistinct voices, as though 3 separate conversations were happening at once. They were never clear, always layered over each other, like someone was trying to communicate but couldn't. The whispers only lasted for a second or two, just long enough for me to notice before they vanished. The strangest part was that they always stopped the moment I turned around, as if whatever it was didn't want to be caught. I tried to brush it off until one night when my wife confided in me. She said she had felt like someone was watching her from our bedroom's walk-in closet. The closet was right below the attic and was just as sealed off with no windows, surrounded by other rooms. She couldn't sleep with her back to it, the unease creeping up her spine. One night, I was heading to bed later than usual, as I often worked late from home. As I walked down the hallway toward the bedroom, I noticed a dark void outside the bedroom door. It was strange, like the light had been sucked away. I actually walked past it, but something made me turn around for another look. That's when it rose, slowly, almost like it was gaining shape, and in an instant, it rushed toward me, sweeping over me and disappearing. It was so fast that my instinct was to step back, trying to protect myself, even though I knew I couldn't stop it. I told my wife about it, and she looked unsettled. Then she shared something she'd been holding back. One night, she'd woken up to see a shadow standing at the foot of the bed. It was dark, shape-shifting, and when she sat up to get a better look, it rushed toward her and vanished in midair. Her story sent chills down my spine. It was exactly what I had experienced, and it made me realize this was something beyond coincidence. Other strange things kept happening, small, unsettling occurrences that added up. Sometimes, when we were downstairs, we would hear the sound of our bedroom shutters opening. It was unmistakable, the magnet releasing, the shutters folding, and the faint noise of them hitting the wall. But when I went upstairs to check, everything was perfectly normal. The shutters were closed, and nothing seemed out of place. Then there were the tiny holes in our shirts. At first, it was just my wife's shirts, 3 small, perfect holes near the bottom, just to the left of the center. They weren't torn or ripped, they were neat, like tiny circular punctures. We thought maybe it was something at her work or the washing machine, but the holes started appearing in my shirts too. Always in the exact same spot. We switched cars, tried different seat belts, but the holes kept showing up. We couldn't explain it. To make matters worse, my wife started getting bruises. Big, painful bruises on her legs and arms, sometimes forming out of nowhere, while we were watching TV. She'd noticed them appearing hours after they weren't there. No explanation. A few nights ago, I saw something again. It was like a ball of darkness in the corner of the room. The odd thing was, it was only visible when I wasn't looking directly at it. When I turned my gaze, it disappeared. It felt strange, like the room was shifting around me. It used to happen mostly in the attic area, but now it was happening on my side of the room, something new. This side of the room had always felt normal, but now even here, things were changing. We don't know what to do. We've considered moving, but we're afraid it might make things worse. It doesn't feel evil, just incredibly unsettling. We can't explain it, but it's definitely strange. And it's making us question everything.